Welcome to the Derek Diamond Experience podcast, where every week I take a look inside the world of film and television with those who have lived it and experienced it. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and this week I am happy to be joined with actor Christopher Dukes. How are you, sir?
Good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've been looking forward to this since we set it up a couple of weeks ago. So it's been fun, throughout the year, chatting with actors like yourself and other filmmakers throughout the craziness that has been 2020. And it's funny because even though the pandemic's been going on, I've connected with more people, it seems like, because now everybody's doing things virtually. So it's almost like it's easier to speak with people who live on the other side of the country, or it seems to be more prevalent now that virtual meetings have become more of a prevalent thing. But and I feel like this has kind of been my leadoff question now most of the year. But how has the pandemic been affecting your career?
It was interesting because I was on a production in March that I was stunt coordinating and working with a director I'd worked with for years. And we were supposed to have, 2.5 days to do this big scene, this ending of this movie, big fight sequence. And, 3 of the 4 people die, and it's this whole big thing. And the producer said, yeah, you have 2.5 days, to do this. Okay, great. So did our half day. And then when we came to the first full day, the producer comes up, he says, hey, Chris, if you had to, could you do it all today? And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, I know you said 2 days, but could you do it all today? And I'm thinking, are you going to shut us down? He's like, no, but could you do it all today? And I said, well, if we go all night, until the sun comes up, I think so. He's like, okay, well, let's give it a shot. And so we barreled through all night, and literally right before the sun came up, we got the last shot in. And then sure enough, big money guy producer comes on set and says, we were in New York at the time. And he says, on the advice of our lawyers in the state of New York, we are going to go ahead and shut down, this film. Like, everybody get back, safe as you can. Okay. So, the airlines were back then they were letting you change, your flight with no penalties or whatever. And it was the most surreal thing. I was at JFK, and you have to take these big buses, to go to your area. And normally those buses are just packed wall to wall. And I have a picture somewhere on my Facebook where it's myself and the driver, literally the only people on the bus. And he's like, well, sir, you ready to go? I go, sure, and, flew home and really was just kind of had nothing for a few months until, as we kind of got our heads wrapped around, what is this? How is this going to affect? Where is it going? Is, summer's coming? Is it not as bad? What's going on? And so, the first couple of productions that came back that I did, a couple of independent things, it's this whole new world. We got our mask on. Okay, well, now I'm on set, but I got to run over to craft service, right? I have to go get it and put it on, and because I'm running off set, but then I'm coming back, and then the makeup gal's like, well, don't put it back on because you're gonna mess up your makeup. Okay. And so there's all these new sort of parameters that we're dealing with. So to say it's had an effect on my career is certainly an understatement. I've still been working, thank God. I've still had some nice gigs this year, and some really good auditions that have come across my desk. It's just different. I'm a realist. I believe, we adapt to what we're given in life. And this is where we are right now. So it certainly has been new. I don't think it's been, something for me I can't adapt to. My career has continued on, and I think will continue on, certainly under new rules. Those rules do seem to change, from time to time, depending on where we are. But yeah, it's definitely been a new, what's the term? A new normal.
That's been one of the words of 2020, or set of words, new normal. Seems like since the summer, that's been what I've been hearing about. It's funny you mention, things being surreal after things were essentially shut down. Even, a couple of weeks ago, I was in the Atlanta airport, and there was like next to nobody there. And it's so strange because it's one of the busiest airports in the country, and just to see it practically like a ghost town is pretty crazy. But no, I'm right there with you. It's been affecting everybody. But to kind of backtrack a bit, what was it that initially made you want to work in the film industry? Because you're an actor. You also mentioned you do stunt coordinating. What was it about the industry that drew you to it?
I when I was in high school, I was an athlete, and I kind of had both sides of the brain working. I was, in football and wrestling, but I was also on the debate team. So I kind of had, both sides of the brain, sort of being worked out. And I think my sophomore year, I answered an ad in the newspaper that said they were looking for talent. It's something different, interesting, fun, and ended up being one of these agents searching for new faces. And so he picked me up, and I think the second audition I went to for some commercial, I got. And I remember I was in Nebraska, and I just had to play with this football. And it was a growing up through the years. And you've kind of seen like the milk commercials where the kid kind of grows up and he's like 10 and 15. So I was the third kid, about the 18-year-old, kind of looking like, oh, and then the 25-year-old comes in, and he's the finale. And I think I was 15 or 16 years old, and they paid me $200, which at that time might as well have been $1 million, and it was this thing. I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And I really felt, I wondered if I was going to be nervous, and I really felt at home on set. I didn't ever, and I didn't know how I would react to that, all these sets of eyes on me and makeup and hair and all this stuff. And it really just felt, sort of a weird normal. And so, I started going out for the school plays and that type of thing. And really, just kind of made a deal with my parents. I said, hey, so once I get the college degree, I can go, right? And they said, yeah. And so, graduated December of 94. And I was in LA February of 95 with $300 in my pocket and motivation, saying, I'm here, let's go. And, the first 6 months was definitely a challenge. I went through my savings rather quickly. My saving grace was, I think my grandfather had opened up like a life insurance policy for me that had some cash value. And I asked him if I could have the cash value. He said, sure, I got you. And so utilized that, and then finally started getting some traction, did everything, did extra work, stand in, body double, then stunt double, and then kind of worked my way up, into the acting realm.
You mentioned being a stunt double, you doing all these different jobs like stand in, body double, stunt double. Is it through doing that is where you discovered the stunt side of your career? Because I've never interviewed anyone who's worked in stunts, whether it be coordinating or being an actual stunt person. So what is it that drew you initially to that? Because it seems like a very, at least for me personally, would be a very anxiety ridden aspect, the thought of like seeing what stunts happen in movies and everything. So what was it about that drew you to that aspect of your career?
I had always, I've always been athletic, athletically inclined, and had some friends that were, sort of hustling the industry. And I was sort of more on the acting side. I felt more proclivity to that, but, I had just kind of gotten drawn into a couple of, movies where there was action and they had all these things. And so I was kind of like the background guy with the stunt guys, and they'd kind of go, well, how come you're not with us? And I'd say, I don't know. How come? And so they said, well, you should get some training. And I ended up going to just a huge audition at the time it was Debbie Reynolds' studio. And it was for one of the live shows, like, you go see in the summer, right? Like at the theme parks. And a lot of the guys and gals out here, when they're not doing, the TV shows and movies, they do the theme parks. They do the, the Waterworld show, the superhero stunt spectacular, all that stuff. And so it was a huge, I remember there being like 300 guys there. It was just a massive open call. And I made the first cut, I made the second cut, made the third cut. And now I've been there like 6 hours, had to do this whole fight scene. And ultimately I got offered a part, and it was in San Antonio, Texas, at one of the Six Flags Fiesta, Texas was the name of the park. And, every day for 6 months, we either trained, And then once the park opened, we would do, 4 to 5 shows a day. And I mean, crazy stuff on, fights. And then we had stuff on rollerblades and falls. And, and it was really, really good, just, on the job training, if you will, and a ton of fun. I always enjoyed live performances. So that kind of set my basis. So that was in 97. Yeah. And so when I came back, I was really sort of ready. I just come off this, huge show. So I was really sort of ready. And that's what got me interested, I would say. And then met some people in the industry and then just kind of started doing things here and there, but always wanted to have it on the resume. Right. And if you're a producer and you say, well, can that actor, do we think he could do some of his own action? Like, Tom Cruise is a great example. He's got a stunt double. Guy doesn't work very much because Tom, does a lot of his own stuff. And so I always thought of it that way, where maybe I'd be the multi-hyphenate, right? I'd be the actor, singer, stunt guy, whatever it may be. I don't have a wonderful singing voice, so we had to X that part out. But, the actor, stunt guy, I thought would be a nice combo, to be able to provide.
2 out of 3 is not bad at all.
Right.
Well,
right.
And you mentioned working at a theme park, and that's something that I think is extremely underrated about any type of theme park that you go to, whether it's like Universal, Six Flags, Disney. People think of the rides and everything, but there are the shows, and you think of the prep work that has to go into it. And the one that initially jumps out to me is the Indiana Jones show from Disney. I remember that even having an impression on me as a kid, watching what they went through and all the precise movements that they had to make in order to execute that. So what is it that goes into being a stunt coordinator? I mean, obviously the title is coordinating stunts, but what all goes into the actual process of prepping stunts for a film?
Yeah, and I hadn't actually coordinated in a number of years. I had really been kind of concentrating the acting, and got called from a director that I work with quite a bit. And he says, yeah, I got this huge scene, to do. And so to answer your question directly, you get the script, you break it down. There's a old school way of doing it is storyboarding, where you kind of actually write out, the scenes and kind of look at what you would do. The newer method is all called Previz or pre-visualization, where you actually film things, with your iPhone, kind of shoot like your idea of what it would be and show that to the director. A lot of times you'll see Previz from stunt coordinators that make it into the final film. And I kind of wanted to do the same thing with my director. Was Dan Mervish, who was one of the co-founders of the Slam Dance Film Festival. And I've worked on a lot of his projects over the years. And so went over the script and then went out a day early to kind of just get a lay of the land. And, all my big sequence took place inside of this cabin out on the ocean. And so just kind of had to see what I had. Had some challenges because it was a period piece set in the 60s. So everything in the hotel room was, period. So we had, old school antennas, the rabbit ear antennas, old school televisions with the big boxy brown, sort of framing, even the window dressings, so all that stuff I kind of had to get into it. And work it into the scene. It ended up, even though we were rushed because of COVID and the impending craziness, I think the fact that I got there a day early and really, I was in that room with they had an assistant with me, and I was just there for a good day, just really hashing it out and seeing what worked, what doesn't work. And I didn't have any doubles, it was a lower budget deal. So all those actors had to do their own stunts. And 3 of the 4 were pretty athletic. One of them was not as much. She looked at me after I showed her the what I had in mind, and she said, well, Chris, I'm not saying I can do that, but I'll try. I said, well, that's all I could ask. But it was fun. And really, I think the main thing is, keeping everybody safe. There was a lot of hitting and kicking, and there was weaponry involved. There was a tire iron. There was a big old school reel-to-reel tape player. A guy gets bashed in the head with a big piece of driftwood, and the catch is always trying to make it look real without endangering the actors. And so my hope is we were able to do that. In fact, I saw a preview of the movie, and some of my fight sequence made it into the trailer. So I was pretty happy.
Nice. Yeah, I look at it almost in a way of, because I've talked to a couple of composers on the show too about their mindset of doing a film score. I kind of look at Stunts the same way. As someone who really works strictly in editing, that whole concept is foreign to me. Like with music, I'm like, how do you come up with, like how does John Williams come up with the themes for Harry Potter and Star Wars in his head? How do stunt coordinators visualize the fight scenes as they read the script? So that's really fascinating to hear.
Yeah, it was a good time, and I really enjoyed. It was a different type of creativity for me. Acting itself has its own creative process that I have my own process as I go through. Stunts themselves as an entertainer have their own process and their own sort of creative aspect, and then coordinating, which is really like any other behind the scenes sort of job, has its own sort of process. And it's kind of cool to be able to do all those and kind of see things from the other side, and I think it makes me appreciate coordinators more as an actor and as a stunt person, kind of knowing what they go through to keep us safe.
Well, and I think it's also important for everyone to at least dabble in other aspects of the industry. Like if you're an actor, to see what goes on behind the scenes, or if you work behind the camera or even in an editing room, it's good to go out on set and see what the actors have to do in order to prepare for what they do. Because I think I've used this analogy ad nauseum on the show, but filmmaking, a film is like a giant machine. All the different parts, actors, stunt coordinators, directors, writers, they're all little cogs in the machine, and they all have to work together in order to make the machine run. So I think having better understanding of how other jobs are done, even if you're not going to do them, at least having an understanding helps out the project as a whole.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
So before we wrap up here, I did want to ask you about one of the latest films that you did called Middleton Christmas, which is out now. And Suzanne De Laurentiis, who introduced us, had a big hand in making that film happen. So how did you initially hear about the project, and what made you want to get involved?
So Suzanne, I had worked with her on previous projects, and she had come to me, and we had talked about this project, and she said, hey, do you think you could play like a protective dad who has a son, that's maybe athletic, and you want to protect him, and you want to do what's best for him. And I'm thinking, well, I'm a dad and I have a son who's athletic and I'm protective of him. So not a ton of a stretch, but a little different storyline there. And I said, absolutely, I could play it. And the one of the main kids, it plays my son, Trevor Steinis, as the actor, and a real nice kid. And there's some, not to give away too much in the movie, but there's a choice that has to be made. And as his sort of overprotective dad, I make my opinion known in a pretty poignant scene near the middle of the movie. I watched it here not too long ago with my wife and my son at the house. And it was interesting to see, their response to dad, being overprotective, an overprotective dad in the movie. And it was a cool moment. For me, now I sort of look at things through the eyes of my kids. And when they say, the 8-year-old looks over at me and he goes, Dad, I believe that. That was pretty good. I said, well, thank you. Thank you, 8-year-old. I appreciate that. But it was really working with Eileen Davidson, who's been in soaps for years, who was just very gracious and very giving. And then my wife is played by his actress named Danielle, also just wonderful, and a really good time. And Suzanne, as a producer, they're the ones that kind of run the show, and they're a lot of times they and the director are responsible for how the set feels. Does it feel comfortable? Is it welcoming? Is it giving, or is it cold? And how does that affect you as a person, right? If you're in a good mood, because ultimately, look, when you're in a movie, these are people that you're going to be with for 12 to 15 hours, right? And so you want to be with some like you and I would hang out because we're similar minded individuals. So we would, we would get along. And she created a really warm environment, on the set that was nice, just felt comfortable. You went in there, everybody's talking, having a good time. And don't get me wrong, when the cameras were rolling, people were serious and got to the point. But it was just a really good, positive experience, with her producing, and then the other actors were very giving. And I kind of had to be the dare I say the jerky, dad, in the scene, but it was when you see the movie, it's a part that has to be played to to find out what ultimately happens later. But I had a good time playing it. For me, it was in my 40s now. I get a lot of the dad roles, a little bit different for me, personally, but it's something I've adapted to, and I enjoy.
No, that's great to hear, and it reminds me of stories that I've read, throughout the years about certain. I'm not going to drop names, but like you hear of different actors or different directors that are just horrible to work with and create these really stressful work environments. You hit the nail on the head. When you're on a set, for at least 10 to 12 hours. You want to be around people you get along with, that you want to work with. So it's like it's good to hear that she created a fun, warm, and welcoming environment, because you're getting to make a movie. You should be enjoying yourself and having fun.
And I said that to my wife years ago when we met. I worked a lot in my 20s, and then I met my now wife, and I kind of took a step back in my 30s a little bit, and started my family and a business and some other things, and then kind of in my 40s kind of got back into it, and have really been busy the last 5 years or so. And that's the one thing I told my wife. I said, I'm enjoying it. It's an outlet for me. It's a creative outlet. It's something I enjoy, and I'm having fun. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I enjoy it. I enjoy the creative process. I'm a big improv guy, so the directors let me improv. I'm in heaven. And that's, I've always said, as long as I'm having fun doing this, I'll take, whether it's a 1-day job or 7 days, as long as I can make a deal with the wife. While I'm having fun doing it, I'll continue, and I'll do it till I can. And I guess the day that I'm not having fun that's when I'll find something else to do. But I think personality wise, I really enjoy the creative process, and I work with a lot of the same people, from project to project, and we all know each other, and we know each other's personalities. And that just makes it, when I'm like, hey, I'm going to work with Derek again, I'm going to work with, so-and-so again. So, it's going to be a fun experience.
Absolutely. So, again, as we start to wrap up here, I like to end with asking this question. So what is one piece of advice that you could give to an aspiring actor?
One piece of advice I would give to an aspiring actor would be there are going to be a lot of roadblocks in your pursuit of your career. And there are going to be a lot of doors shut and people saying no to you. And you have to realize and have to come to grips with that is part of the deal, a part of the life that you have chosen as an entertainer, whether it be a singer, dancer, stunt person, or actor. And you just have to have faith and know that at some point there's going to be one that goes, no, you're it. And you walk in that room, and you hear this all the time. And I've had it happen to me, thank God, a couple times. You walk in that room and they go, that's him. That's him. We got it. Before you start talking, they know. And so for the actors out there that want to pursue a career, just know that you have to get after it every day. Every day you get up, and I don't care if you're nervous or things are tough. You get up every day and you go get your workout in, and you get your head right, and you get to work. I mean, this is a business. It is called show business. 10% of it is talent, and 90% of it is business, and being able to get in those doors, getting past those no's, and really, waiting for the person that says yes. And once those yeses start coming, the old adage is work begets work. And once you start getting work, and people start seeing you, and then you get recognized from something, and one of your shows does well, or one of your plays does well, or one of, the coordinator that works with you, or a casting director that casts you gets good feedback about you, it's going to happen, and it'll happen. And then you're going to be working nonstop, and then you'll be double booked and everything else. But the one thing I'll say is, you're going to get some roadblocks in your pursuit of this career, but strive to do your best every day, and it'll happen for you. It'll happen eventually, whether it's in your 20s or 30s or 40s. It will happen.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't have said that any better myself. But last thing I want to ask you before we get out of here, do you have any website, social media, upcoming projects that you want to plug?
Yeah. So you can check me. All of my projects and upcoming projects are on IMDb. So imdb.com/Christopher Dukes. So as far as upcoming projects, I have two horror shorts, two scary shorts coming out. One called Dinner Rush, where I play a hitman, and one called A Slice of Life, where I play an actor going to a questionable audition late at night, both of which are psychological kind of thrillers, a little horror mixed in. So those were a lot of fun to play. Those are going to be part of a series coming up called Very Frightening Tales, which is kind of a rebirth of, you remember Tales from the Crypt and Outer Limits and that type of thing. So that's kind of a next generation of that. A lot of fun to play. So those hopefully will be available soon. Middleton Christmas is playing right now. So for those of you that have bought it on Amazon, thank you. Certainly appreciate you supporting the cause. And then there's a few other things in the works that when I get them, hopefully you can look on IMDb and you'll see what's in productions to come.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was great. And anytime you want to come back on to plug future projects, you're more than welcome.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And if you want to follow this show on social media, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at DDiamondPodcast. I'm also on Patreon at patreon.com/DDiamondPodcast. If you want to subscribe to the show, is anywhere you get your podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify. Just search for The Derek Diamond Experience. And of course, thank you to my close friends, the Unicorn Wranglers, for providing the theme music for the podcast. You can check out all their music on Apple Music, Google Play, and Spotify. That's going to do it for this week's show. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a safe and fun weekend. Thank you for tuning in to another awesome episode of the Derek Diamond Experience. I am your host, Derek Diamond, and we'll see you guys back here next Thursday.